All right, moments ago, you heard from Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance, and now to our exclusive interview with the Democratic VP candidate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Welcome back for a second week in a row. Good to see you, Governor.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Thanks for having me back.
Okay, so listen, I still have a lot of questions. I'm glad you're back for more of a conversation. But when I heard that you wanted to come back this week, your team reached out. I was a little bit surprised. What's that about?
Well, look, folks deserve to hear where we stand on this. Vice President Harris and I have an agenda for, a new way forward, a manufacturing agenda. I was just in Michigan this week, and I think folks are still undecided out there. And I appreciate you. You ask good, hard questions, and your viewers get a chance to hear.
Okay, we appreciate you coming because we do want our viewers to hear from everybody. They've got decisions to make, although you and I both, I don't know, it's hard to find an undecided voter at this point, but you've come across some, so maybe they're watching today. Okay, let's ask about the Electoral College, because this week you made some news when you said it, quote, needs to go.
Yeah.
Campaign said not their position. You say you line up with the campaign now. One author who's written a book about why America has the Electoral College says this in a Politico piece: cities already are the homes of America's major media, donor, academic, and government centers. A simple, direct democracy will centralize all power, government, business, money, media, and votes in urban areas to the detriment of the rest of the nation. Now, you did once refer to red areas on a map as, quote, mostly rocks and cows. But the founders clearly wanted to protect voices in those areas. Do you not?
Yeah, well, the rest of that quote that they cut off was, I said that includes my mom and my family. Look, my point on this is people feel, and they have to feel, every vote counts in every place of the country. And I think what the point was on this is they see us in battleground states and not across the country. So the campaign's position is clear on this. That's not to get rid of the Electoral College, but it's to focus on every vote. And I think your viewers out there listening want to see these campaigns in every corner talking to every person. And look, as a rural guy, that's, again, you know how politics goes, cut off the back part of this. My point being on that is those are areas that need to be heard. So every voter out there, every vote needs to count.
Okay, so let's get back to some things we didn't get to discuss last week. Let's talk about the issue of censorship and free speech. You've said there's no guarantee to free speech for misinformation or hate speech. But first of all, Supreme Court very clear in a unanimous 2017 decision that hate speech is protected. That's the kind of stuff that needs to be protected, stuff none of us like to hear. But more importantly, who gets to decide on the issue of what misinformation is?
Look, the First Amendment is foundational. It's something I spent my whole life, the vice president, and I think most Americans are clear on this. The point being on this, we're seeing censorship coming in the form of book bannings in different places. We're seeing it attempts in schools. The issue on this is the hate speech and the protected hate speech. Speech that's aimed at creating violence, speech that's aimed at threats to individuals. And that's what we're talking about in this. And the decision on that, society decides on a lot of this. The idea of someone going on and threatening someone's life or a child's life online, I don't think any of your viewers think that is something that should be acceptable.
I mean, there's a distinction, you would say, though, between something like a threat and misinformation.
Oh, certainly, and that's what we're talking about. And I think the idea of making sure that folks understand, are good consumers of that, those are the decisions they make. But I've always defend your First Amendment rights, defend your right to disagree on every case. That robust discussion has to happen. And that's why I'm so opposed to book banning. That's why in Minnesota we banned the practice of book banning. Let you make the decision of what you're going to read, whether you find it objectionable or not. The difference is threats, that type of speech.
Okay. A distinction there. Okay, let's talk about guns, too, because back in 2010, you had an A rating from the NRA. You were happy about it then. You said this: I'm proud to stand with the NRA to protect our Second Amendment rights, and I'm truly grateful for their endorsement. Now, by 2018, you'd gone all the way to an F, but you were also then happy about that rating. Your running mate has said more than once, the vice president, that she is for mandatory gun buyback. She also said at one point in the past, even if you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home, that doesn't mean that we're not going to walk in and check on things. Now, you both say you're gun owners, so are you okay with that? Someone at some point saying you have to give one of your guns back, all of your guns back, and or somebody doing a warrantless search in your home of guns that you legally own?
Yeah, no one's talking about that. And I was with my guns yesterday out pheasant hunting with my friends,
you.
many of them conservatives. and many of them conservative on this, and I just want to be clear on this. The NRA as an organization that I grew up with was about gun safety. There has been a dramatic shift, and I don't think anybody can argue that, where the NRA went, especially on things that we can't even do research on gun violence. And I've made it clear that setting with the Sandy Hook parents, setting with some of these kids who were in schools where there were school shootings, and having friends that were around these things had a profound impact on me. But look, I will defend the Second Amendment, and there's nothing that we're proposing, whether it's extreme risk protection orders or background checks, that will stop you from owning that. And I think we're talking about things like trigger locks and things that responsible gun owners do anyway. So look, this is a red herring issue that we can own guns, protect the Second Amendment, and then our first responsibility is protect our children in society. And I know we can do that. I think this idea of just brushing it off, saying, well, this is just the way things are, why would we not research what's causing this? Why would the gun manufacturers oppose understanding exactly why America is so different than other gun-owning countries? So look, no one's coming for your guns. I continue to buy them. The vice president is a gun owner. So many of your viewers are, but they also are concerned that we don't need to see our children shot in schools.
Yes, I think everybody can agree on that. Now, the NRA would say that they are the foremost when it comes to programs for safety for hunters, for kids, for gun owners, that is still part of their mission. But this issue of whether Americans should be forced to give their guns back at some point or whether a warrantless search is okay, I'm assuming you're opposed to both of those.
Yeah, nobody's proposing that. Nobody's proposing your guns. That's exactly right. The thing is, Shannon, that I'm most concerned with, though, is like guns in homes. The number one thing is children getting the gun and shooting themselves. We do education campaigns here. We give out free gun locks. 40,000 of these things at the state fair a couple years ago. Those are legal gun owners saying, you're right, we can do some of these things.
Yeah, and I think that if you have children in your home, absolutely, you've got an obligation to make sure
yes.
That those things are under lock and key. Okay, now it appears that your evolution politically, your years in Congress, there in Minnesota, you've moved to the left. I think that is fair to say. Here's what the Intelligencer says. Walz had a fairly conservative voting record in Congress where he represented a red district. He used that record to win the governorship and then moved sharply left. Here's something that you said weeks ago.
Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Okay, so Merriam-Webster Dictionary on Socialism says it's a system of society or group living in which there's no private property, or this condition of society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the state. Did you mean to advocate for that here in the U.S.?
No. Shannon, look, I'm a capitalist. I was making the point of is Republicans oftentimes talk about socialism. And what I would make the case of is we build our roads collectively together. I don't think anybody's arguing that you should have to build your own road from your house to your business place or whatever. So I said this definition that the right uses about this, things that we collectively do together, that look, I believe in moral capitalism. I believe capitalism works and it lifts everyone up. But I also believe you have to make sure that there's things that we collectively do together. We educate our children by using our public schools. We build roads. We do some of the things like public health where we work together. So the point being on this is of trying to divide that, but you certainly can't have a capitalism that says billionaires get everything and the middle class gets nothing. And I think Kamala Harris's point on this is lifting up the middle class, making an opportunity economy, making housing affordable, making drug prices more affordable. That's what we're talking about. And so I said, don't listen to them tell you that these things that we can do together, but also we want people to succeed. And when you succeed, all we're asking is that you pay your fair share. I'm excited when people if they make it, their business grows, they become wealthy, that's fine. Just pay your fair share and then all of us do better.
Okay, so the word, did you not mean to use the word socialism? Was it a knucklehead thing or did you mean to use it?
No, it was what the right uses. Would you describe, Shannon, and your viewers, that building roads is socialism?
No, but that's also not the government controlling all property and means of funding those roads and taking from you and saying that you don't have your private funds. Although people would argue about taxes, some people argue that they do feel like it feels confiscatory.
Well, no, we made no problem. Look, the point being is Donald Trump says that this is a socialist or Marxist government. Kamala Harris is actually doing just the opposite of that, creating a free economy that works and people can grow into the middle class. So I think the argument here is that just trying to blanket over. Most people recognize that the Infrastructure Act is creating massive private wealth because of building that out together. And that's what Kamala Harris has done, understanding that the things that government should do, government can do. The things the private sector can do, they should.
Okay.
That's a big difference from Donald Trump skewing things towards the wealthy.
Well, and listen, when you want to talk about the tax cuts, that they're going to be sunsetted unless there is, depending on who wins and what happens in Congress as well, IRS data shows that that did benefit every class of taxpayers. So, you know, of course, the Trump-Vance team is going to want to argue about that. But let me ask you this. Your Minnesota record, this is a piece written in the Wall Street Journal by a longtime Minneapolis resident and attorney there. He says, under Mr. Walz, Minnesota has become a high-crime state. Student achievement has tumbled as spending on schools has skyrocketed. Per capita gross domestic product has fallen below the national average. And he says Minnesotans have joined the residents of New York, California, and Illinois, fleeing their home states, and notes that you were elected by a much tighter margin the second time around than you were the first time, because he says people are leaving with their feet and their votes, and that they don't like the way that you govern Minnesota.
Yeah, well, I won by nearly 8 points on that. What I would say is it's a Republican writing that. I wouldn't be surprised by it. The fact of the matter is Minnesota is recognized as a top 5 business state, top 3 state to raise children. We are #1 in healthcare. Crime in America is at a 50-year low. Contrast that to Donald Trump's time in office.
But they're talking about crime in Minnesota.
Yes, and you can look at the statistics, you can see where we're at. We certainly know that during the Trump years, we saw murders go up and things, but they're all coming down. The country, 50-year low, same thing here. So I think contrasting to that, look, this is about Donald Trump going to Detroit and saying Detroit stinks. This is about Republicans saying Minnesota's not good. This is where they go to states. Donald Trump actually going so far as to saying maybe I won't give disaster aid to states that vote blue. Kamala Harris wants to be a president for all Americans. Kamala Harris is not going to divide states based on where they're at. This is just, it's simply not the case. We simply have a high quality of life that we're very proud of. I would invite folks to come to Minneapolis, come visit the 5-0 Minnesota Vikings, and you'll see a state that's thriving, a state that's building homes, a state that's focusing on the middle class and jobs.
All right. Well, we will leave that there with your critics and their questions that they say the data proves out the claims they're making about crime and education and all those other things. So folks can check it out. We'll share some of that too. Governor, I still have more questions. Maybe we'll talk again. It's great to have you back this week.
Well, you're great. I hope I can come back. Thanks, Shannon.
Okay. Thank you, Governor.